All right, welcome back. Today I have for you a vehicle for Battletech Alpha Strike that is one of the most terrifying vehicles in the entire game. Something that I know locally we all have come to love, and that is the Pike Support Plasma. All right, so what is the Pike Supports Plasma? Real quick rundown. It is a 19-point conventional vehicle with a TMM of 1. It is 6-tracked. Its damage profile is only 110, but spoiler alert on the abilities, he's Heat 222, which makes him super awesome. Of course, no OV because he's a vehicle. Total health of 8, and that's 5 in the armor, 3 in the structure, which is great because it's armor forward. We don't have a lot of structure that we're dealing with. We're going to minimize those crits. It's a perfect combo there. It also is a case for its abilities. Again, Heat 222, and it's also in the turret, and it also has a searchlight. So, for all those games you play in the dark. It's pros. It's cheap. And when I say cheap, 19 points is nothing. You can throw this thing in a lot of lists. And you can skill this thing down if you really want it to connect, and you're only spending I think 22 or 23 points on it. It's fantastic. Basically, he's a heat sniper. You're not really relying on that damage. You're relying on that 222 profile for the heat. And against mechs, dinking heat, especially early on in the game at long range, is a feel bad, right? Nobody likes getting hit with heat. It is a super point efficient, what I would call WMD delivery device, right? It's just going to throw that damage out there. And if something gets in to medium range, you potentially can do, especially if it's conventional infantry, right? Or a vehicle, you're potentially doing 3 damage to them for only 19 points or 20, 22, 23 if you've skilled it down. And then at long range, addition 2 heat on a mech that's not even in combat range is awesome. It is ubiquitous, meaning everyone can take it except Periphery, which is kind of a bummer because you think that Periphery would get their hands on this thing and use all the fire, right? Now the cons. It's limited. So it's ubiquitous in that everyone can take it but Periphery, but it's limited in that it's limited in its eras. I believe that you can only really take this thing in later eras. So you're looking at Dark Age and Ill Clan, which is kind of a bummer. It'd be nice if it was available a lot earlier than that. It also would be nice if it was 1-1-1, so you at least could throw a point of damage at long range if you connect with one of those heat, or do 3 damage to a vehicle or infantry at long range. So real quick to go over the heat rules for those you don't know. If you have a point of heat, you have to roll that dice separately, correct, to see if your normal damage doesn't just do damage, but also does heat damage. Now, if you connect with a conventional infantry or a tank, you just double the damage, right? Because they don't take heat, only mechs take heat. If you do heat damage, but your damage profile is 0 for that range bracket, then you just do straight heat, not damage, unless, again, it's conventional infantry or a vehicle. So when you throw your dice at long range, you're just throwing heat on a mech. There's no chance you can do damage. When heat is stacked with a damage profile, it's kind of nice because you're not just hitting them for some damage, you're also popping some heat on them. And if it's conventional infantry or a vehicle, if it's infantry or vehicle, sorry, not just conventional infantry, because it affects battle armor as well. You're doubling it. So if this thing was 222 with 222 heat, you would be smoking anything not a mech, and you'd be really loading it up. Another con, and this isn't a con of this vehicle, it's a con of the Wolfnet rules, is now that vehicles are limit 1, you can't run 2 of these things, which used to be, at least in our meta, super popular. For 38 points, you could just be rolling out there with 4 heat at each range bracket, just shutting it down. It was pretty sweet. Philosophy of use. He's a cheap sniper, but with heat, right? And so because you're not doing the damage, you're saving points. But if you're if you're hitting things that aren't max, you're doubling. You're still doing that damage. So for 19 points, that's pretty good. You're getting into that, like I talked about in the sniper video, that sub 10 points for each of your long range shots, which is pretty awesome. But you're also really putting the screws to a mech pilot, if you're connecting, because that heat just, it's slowing mechs down. It's making it harder for them to hit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other philosophy of use, other than a sniper, is going to be, of course, it's going to be backboard kind of protecting things. He can do that, yada, yada. But he's really a terror weapon, right? He's using that plasma, that heat damage to scare your opponent And hopefully, because he's terrifying your opponent, he's going to be like dictating movement and dictating like where your opponent does and doesn't want to go, because your opponent doesn't want to have heat put on their mechs. Like, end of story. It like this thing starts connecting reliably, and if you say you take something else that can also reliably connect with heat, like it can really hamper an opponent's ability to effectively execute their game plan. So you start to dictate, especially with that long range, you start to dictate what your opponent is willing to do, where he is and isn't willing to push, come out of cover, what risks he isn't willing to take. Model review, the new CGL model is super awesome. Like, the plastic is so good, and this is another reason I'm bummed you can only take one of these. We'll get into variants here in a second. They're okay. There's maybe one or two that I might consider, but a lot of them are just not fantastic. But when you could run two of these plasma Pike, it was super dope, and everyone loved it. And it'd be sweet to run two of them again. But you're going to have to find a meta or a format that, allows you to take multiple vehicles. I understand why Wolfnet limited that. I mean, really, it's for balance of play and people spamming the really, really good vehicles, and making it not a game of battle mechs, but a game of armored vehicles, not a game of armored combat between giant mechs. So they limited it, which is a bummer, but I understand why. But there's all sorts of formats and fun times, fun casual settings you can play with two of them. I believe Ironwind Metal has one as well, and it's just okay. But the plastic from CGL is the bee's knees, as they say in the schools these days. Notable variants. All right, let's get into these guys. There's 6 other variants of this thing. Since it's only 6, I'm going to go through all of them. We're going to start off with the AC5 Pike. It is a 21-point tank. All the stats are very, very similar as far as the movement goes. It's 6 track, but it's 221, and it's only got, let's see, let me do math real quick in my head. It's also got 8 hit points, so it's 5-3, which is pretty decent. It's got a turret, but the turret is only 111, which is a big drawback. I don't think I'd run this thing. I don't think the points are worth it at 21. You think like for 23, you can get into a partisan, or you could even get into the Shrek PPC carrier. I know those have like fewer hit points and they're not armor forward, but everything's in the turret, and you're getting 333 out of those, some of those variants that they have. And so I think this thing is pretty worthless and pretty trash. I don't know that I would take it in a competitive format. Now, if you're putting on a narrative game, I think they would be fun to put on the board and push around. They got lots of hit points. They're going to stay around. Two shots isn't nothing, but it's just a little too expensive for a competitive format, especially since you don't have that turret at 221. That really is limiting. The basic Pike support is only 18 points. It's 111, again 6 track, again 8 total hit points, armor forward 5-3, and its turret 0-star 1-1, which is I think terrible, to be honest with you. I don't know that I'd ever run this thing hard stop. I mean, for 3 more points you can get 221, and you don't have a 0-star, at least in the turret. So I don't know why you would run this thing. Especially, I don't understand why this thing is so trashy. It's got three gun barrels. But anyways, I would avoid the Pike support vehicle at 18 points. The Clan Pike is 22 points. It is 6 track, of course. It's 222 with the same 8 hit points, armor forward 5-3. It also has case, which is really nice because a lot of these sniper vehicles don't have case, and it's turret 222. Now, I do kind of like this thing. I think it's a little expensive at 22 points for a sniper, but it does have a little more health than some of those other sniper vehicles that we've talked about in the past, and it also has case, which is pretty nice. The problem is, for one more point, you could get that partisan that I like so much, and you could also pick up that Shrek PPC carrier. I think it's the infantry variant, and at that point, you're 333. You're losing some of your hit points, you're losing some other abilities, but I just think 23 points, 3 at long, is just the goose's gander, as they say. So I don't know. You could run this as a cheap filler unit. I don't think it's the end of the world terrible, but I just think there's better options out there. The next one is the LBX Pike support vehicle. It's 23 points. It's 221. It is actually 6-3, so it has 9 hit points. So it's up in hit points. It's got case. It's got turret 111, which is, you're not getting the 221 in the turret, but at least it's 111. Now, the bonus that this thing gets is that it's flak 111. So if you're going to be getting into some opponents with the BTOLs and things like that, or you're putting on a narrative campaign, this might not be a terrible option for the flak at 23 points. It is kind of cheap, and you do have a lot of health that your opponent has to chew through, especially since you're a team M1. But ultimately, I would not take it in competitive format. The missile support vehicle is 26 points at 232. We're back down to 8 hit points with a 5 armor and a 3 structure. It is IF2 with LRMs 1, 2, 2. So if you're playing with LRMs, I guess that's all right. You're going to get some of that LRM action. But in the turret, this is where those LRMs are at, which means you're only 1, 2, 2 in the turret with the IF2 in the turret. Now, if you're looking for some, some chonkier IF2 with that many hit points is not the end of the world. Now, the problem is you can just go get an LRM carrier, hide it behind a hill. I know you've got like half of the hit points on that thing, but you're dropping 3 and you're generally staying out of line of sight. So, this thing can duel and duke it out a little bit more because of its armor and its structure than, say, an LRM carrier, especially since it's got 3 at medium. And it's got the body for it. And it is nice that you get the IF2, but for 26 points, I would just take, if you're really needing some IF, I would just take an LRM carrier, to be blunt. But, narrative campaign wise, op force, things like that, these would be fun because they've got that 3 at medium. They present as a threat, a real threat at medium for 26 points, but I wouldn't rely on this thing. There are better sniper options. There are better IF options. Let's move on. The last one is the Rack Assault Pike, 28 points. So you're spending quite a bit more. You're almost 10 points more than that Plasma Pike, and which is 19. It is, again, 6 track. All these are 6 track, and it is 333. So you are getting into that kind of sweet spot that I like for a sniper, being sub 10 points per shot at long range. What's great about this thing is that it also is 9 total health at 6 armor, 3 structure. And that armor is armor forward, unlike your partisans, unlike your PPC carriers, your Shrek PPC carriers. And it is turret 333. How great is that? I think that it's actually a pretty good option. Now, it starts off being available in Civil War, and it is a Federated Commonwealth, Fed Sons, Taurian Magistry vehicle during Civil War. And then it Fed Sons, Magistry, Taurian during Jihad. You kind of get some expanded use. Mercs can use it, Capellans can use it, and some of the Free World League sub-factions at Early Republic. The Late Republic looks to be about the same, as does Dark Age, and as does Hill Climb. So it's a little more ubiquitous, a little more available. The way I would use this thing, if I was to take the air quotes assault pike, would be, I am tired of my partisans and my Shrek PPC carriers that only have like 7 hit points getting destroyed or taking critical hits internally because they're like 3-4 armor structure, right? So this thing's just got a little more beef. You're spending more, but you're getting a little more beef to protect yourself. Now, remember, if you take, say, like that Shrek PPC carrier, that partisan that we like, at skill 3, you're paying 28 points for him. So you're only skill 4 at 28 points, but you do have a little more life. If you're going to skill down, it is going to cost you a little bit more, but you have some more like chonk there, which you can rely on. And so I don't think it is the worst option in the world. There are far more terrible versions of the pike that you should avoid, but the assault pike, I think, is pretty good. It's not as point efficient, right? It's not as trimmed down, but that thing ain't going nowhere with 9 hit points and 6 armor, 3 structure. It's going to be able to park up on a hill like all our other snipers, hang out there for the whole game, and probably not die, and be dishing it out. So that's all I've got for today. Like I said, if you've not run the plasma pikes before, you got to find a way to get that bad boy into some of your lists. It is amazing. Plus, they've got super cool new models that are fun to paint. I got mine painted up as a Death Commandos. I used that thing in the Salvage Slam game, and it did super well. Like, I just love It's fun to have like another thing that manipulates the game mechanics like heat on the board and do it for cheap, and then just have fun with it. And it was pretty effective, like just a good, solid, fun unit sniping away with that plasma. If you've ever played with plasma or with the pikes before, leave a comment below. Thumbs up, subscribe, yada yada. Otherwise, may the blessings of Blake be upon you.